So I'm joined by Andy Moore, the new incoming Hello Sunday Morning CEO. Andy, thanks for sharing your time with us this morning.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
So you're on day one of your holiday, essentially between your past job and this job. How's it feeling so far?
I've still got to get myself out of the mindset of being in my job. Um, the previous job, I used to have a 9 o'clock issues meeting call every single day. And so my kind of mindset is, I must kind of make sure that I'm available at 9 o'clock and get on that call. And even this morning, I went for a run this morning. I was thinking, I'm going to be back by 9 o'clock, got to be back by 9 o'clock. And I don't. And even the people on the exec yesterday were saying, if you want to call at 9 o'clock, it's entirely up to you. We'll welcome you. But I'm like, no, no more, no more. That's it. It's done. It's done. So I think it's going to take me a few days to kind of get out of the routine that I've had,
Yeah.
and just kind of calm down a little bit. And that's why I've took the time off to make sure that I've got a proper transition between, because the Flying Doctors it's an amazing organisation, an iconic organisation, but it's also a challenging organisation in many ways as well. So it does take it out of you, and I just want to make sure that I come into this new role completely fresh, completely unbiased in the way that I do things, completely non-judgmental, respect the organisation for the way it's been built, and just work on building that, rather than come in with the way that we've done things before, because that's not the way things are going to be done now. So I've just got to kind of just get rid of that and then start afresh, and that's what the 10 days are for, really.
Great. And so tell me, I mean, yeah, as you say, you got coming from the Royal Flying Doctors, which is, a very old, well-established organisation, coming into Hello Sunday Morning, which is 10 years old, a little bit down the road, but still quite young and focused on a problem that's quite ancient, but in an innovative way. Tell me, what was the process of seeing the job advertised and being like, yeah, this is the right path for me, and what it was like to come to the point of being appointed the new CEO.
Well, there's not many opportunities in a person's life that come up where it kind of meets your background, your technical expertise, your skill set, your experience, and your passion all at the same time. And so it was just one of those ones where it kind of jumped out at me immediately, and I had to just throw my hat in the ring straight away. So I knew straight away that I had to go for it, regardless of whether I was going to get it or not. I really wanted to go for it. Yes, it's a CEO role and it's a step up, but it's a different type of organization. And I've always worked in organizations where I've been allowed to innovate, and been allowed to change for the better. So I didn't see the kind of the differences between the organisation in age as a barrier, really. It's more about the culture of the organisation, and the freedom that you're allowed to do to build an organisation is really important. So I think there was alignment there for me anyway. And I've always, health and social justice has always been an area that is really important to me, both personally and professionally. So it was just one of those things, confluence of things that all kind of merged at the same time. And I just thought, I've got to go for this, because, this kind of organization, this kind of area, matching my skill sets, is just not going to, they don't come up very often. So I just had to go for it straight away, and as I said to you before, I wasn't really looking for a job. But it was just one of those ones that just kind of, you see the email and it just kind of smacks you in the face, and you just have to throw your hat in the ring. And I went for it. So, and I just made sure that through the process I was very authentic and honest about my experience with alcohol and why it was really important to me, and the challenges that I've had, and the understanding that I have, that I can bring to the role as well. So there was just so many reasons why I had to go for it. And I think that probably kind of came out in the interview process as well.
And it seems, yeah, I mean, it's really great that you did that, and now you've got the job. I wanted to kind of dig in and to your own relationship with alcohol, and there'd be something that our members would really love I guess, to hear your story and, what's in all of, how that's evolved over time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how far do you want to go back? Because, I was brought up in England, so alcohol obviously was, it's a big part of society in England. And, so I was, drinking at the age of 17, going out at weekends, sneaking into pubs before the age of 18 and getting away with it. Then I went to university, and of course, university is a big drinking kind of culture. And then after university, I actually went to Hong Kong, and that was pre 1997 days as well. So, the heady days and quite work hard, play hard kind of environment. So alcohol was always a big kind of, it was always there. And then when I was 26, I was diagnosed with cancer. And that kind of changed the way that I kind of viewed the world quite significantly. That's when I started working for not-for-profits. It's probably the first time that I started to challenge myself academically, and I went and did a Masters of Public Health. And physically as well, I challenged myself and started getting into triathlons and stuff. However, the one thing that I didn't tackle, and it wasn't really on my radar either, really, was alcohol. That still was present within my life then. I guess I was still probably more of a social drinker than anything else at the time. And then I moved to Australia when I was 30, early 30s, I think. Kids came along, and I think my drinking habits then kind of changed. I wasn't going out so much, and you start to drink at home a little bit more. You've got kids, you have more stresses in your life. And I started working for an organization which was very stressful to work for. I had a lot of exposure with ministers, and I had a lot of exposure with issues management and day-to-day stuff. And, I think alcohol kind of crept in a little bit by little bit. I started drinking because I was stressed, or I started drinking because I was bored. And it's kind of, it has a kind of insidious kind of nature. It kind of creeps up on you little bit by little bit, and these kind of little habits start to sneak in. You treat yourself on Friday, and then Friday becomes Thursday, and you start to drink a little bit more and a little bit more for a little bit of different reasons. So it's not just one habit. Alcohol doesn't become one habit. It becomes many, many, many different habits, depending on the day of the week and depending on what emotions you're feeling at the time. And it just kind of crept up on me. And I think, around 2011, 2012, work became it was a toxic environment. I had a kind of a confluence of work issues and personal issues all at the same time. I think my drinking then probably increased that little bit more. And I don't think, I look back, and yes, I probably had an issue with volume, but I think it was more of a psychological issue that I had. And I think about it a fair bit. And at the time, if I was either thinking about wanting to drink or thinking about that I shouldn't drink, but alcohol it was constantly on my mind of either not drinking or drinking or not drinking or not drinking. And it just dominates your whole kind of day to day. And eventually, with work and personal stuff happening, I just kind of fell over, essentially. I was diagnosed in 2012 with severe depression. And then I knew at that point that I had to really radically change the way that, my relationship with alcohol. And I fully believe at that time that alcohol had a big, big part to play in that kind of situation. You use alcohol as a kind of a crutch or an escape, really, from your real problems. And I think probably I used alcohol to try and escape what was really going on, to really push the kind of the emotions down, and just carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on until the point you just can't do it anymore. And I reached that point, and it was a really low point. And it took me a while to get over that. And I think what I did was start to look at all the kind of root cause things that were making me unhappy. alcohol being one of them, but that was kind of a symptom of unhappiness generally, I think. And over time, and it still took me a while, but I kind of bit by bit sorted out all those things that were kind of making me unhappy. And then probably around 2016, 2017, I literally pretty much overnight just stopped. And that's because I think I'd wanted to stop for so long. I knew alcohol was not good for me mentally. I knew it was in the way of getting in the way of my day to day. It was getting in the way of me being a good dad. It was getting in the way of me being a good worker. I was impatient. I procrastinated. I did all the things that everybody said to do with alcohol, and I knew that for a long time, but I just couldn't. I had so many people around me that it was normal to drink, and I just found it so hard to stop. And eventually, a lot of personal circumstances changed, and once those kinds of things aligned, I had support around me to be able to stop drinking, and I just literally did it almost overnight. And now, probably about 3 years on, I don't think about alcohol at all anymore, really. I still have a drink, but it will be a glass of wine or a couple of glasses of wine every few weeks. That's it. I don't think about wine. I don't think about alcohol during the day. I don't think about alcohol on a Friday. I don't think about alcohol on Saturday. That's all gone now. And I think in the last few years as well, since I've stopped alcohol, I mean, I think I've had to probably overcome more challenges in my life, both professionally and personally, than I've ever had to do. And I've coped fine. And that's because alcohol hasn't been there. And so I truly believe that alcohol has it's not good for you in so many ways, but mental health is probably one of those where, it is just not good for you. And I knew that, and I had to change it. But it's taken me a long time, and so I understand that, when people get up and they're quite invalid kind of evangelical about that they don't drink anymore. What they don't talk about is the journey to get there is actually quite tough. And I understand that completely. And I do have to still remain quite vigilant about it. It can, every now and then it can, creep in, but I can take it or leave it quite easily now. And it's not something that is, completely pervasive in my mindset anymore. I forget about it completely, which, I look back on, and it's probably the one thing in my life that I'm really proud of, that I've managed to change because it impacted my life in so many ways. I'm a better dad now, and the stuff that I've done at the Flying Doctors, the positive stuff that we did there, I would never been able to do with alcohol in my life ever. And so, it's something that I'm really I know it's stuck now. It's there, and it's part of a permanent me. And I'm so glad, because I used to think to myself, how can I, at the age of 30, 35, how can I carry on like this for the next 30 years until I retire? I can't. You just can't. Now I've just got a much fresher perspective on life. I'm much more proactive, have much more energy, all the things that, you've heard a million times, when people kick alcohol. It's just so true. But you don't realize it when you're in the middle of it. And that's the hardest thing, is when you're actually in the middle of it, and it surrounds you and it's just taken over you. It's really hard to see the wood for the trees, because it's so normal. And once you get out of it, you can see all that. You can look back at it and go, geez, how mad was that? How crazy is it that we've got a society which is completely normal to drink, and it's completely abnormal not to drink? And yet, the balance is completely out there. It's completely wrong. So that's kind of my journey, really.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Andy. I guess now you're really responsible for tens of thousands of people that are going on a similar journey, and at very, very different stages. And I can see you getting a lot of real sense of purpose in taking this on, you're going to see that, and have a real connection with that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What are you, what are you excited about? Where do you see yourself growing through this role? And what are you looking forward to over the next kind of 6, 12 months of work?
Well, I mean, I think for the first few months, it's just really working hard to understand the business itself, the members, the stakeholders, really trying to understand the kind of environment that I'm working in. I think for me, the biggest excitement about this is what's already been built is great already. Yet, with any health issue or any health outcome, and the funding that's available is still only scratching the surface of it in many, many ways. So I think what excites me is there's still a lot of room to grow, and there's a lot of room to make a big difference in society. And that's the thing that really kind of energizes me and gets me going, is the opportunity to really make a difference. It's already made a difference. And that's the great thing about it. You've got something that we can really build on, and that's what I find really exciting. So the first part of it is just understanding the business, respecting what's already there, but working really hard to think about how we can build it even further and how we can make an even bigger impact on society, to the point where people aren't, it's a normal thing to have a conversation about somebody who's not drinking. It's not an abnormal thing, where the society's pressures on you to drink aren't there anymore. And I think that's where you've come a long way in starting that process and breaking through those barriers. And I think there's great opportunity to build it even further. So that's what really excites me. And now, being the CEO, I've got an opportunity. The buck stops with me at the end of the day. I've got an opportunity to make a difference, and it's all down to me. And if I don't do that, then that's my own issue and my own authority that I've kind of let go of. And so those things weigh on me a little bit, but it's a fantastic culture that you've got in the organization. You've got a board that's very supportive as well. So you've got all the ingredients there to make it, to really build on what's already been built. And that's what really excites me. There's a kind of an opportunity to grow and change, both with the organization, but also me personally with it. I've got to really work with the board, understand what their expectations are, and really work with the organization itself and trying to match that up, and really think about what strategically where we can kind of head as an organization. And that, for me, is I've got that opportunity. It's literally me to really support that, and that's really exciting. In other organizations, at the Flying Doctors, I probably had a lot of leeway to make change and do good things there, but still I was a cog in a machine. Still I was part of one section of an overall national kind of organization. Here I am, I've got the opportunity to really support the organization and build it in a really positive way. So that's the kind of stuff that really excites me. And I think as alcohol is just, I think there's just too, we would never go for the point of abstinence completely. This is not something that's necessarily possible, but I think the balance is all wrong at the moment in society around drink. It's the sports sponsorship is ever pervasive. Having a drink after a sport, and sports stars pushing that kind of agenda. Those kinds of things are just, kids see that sort of stuff. And so, those kinds of things in society that are kind of a little bit wrong, I think, is something we've got an opportunity to try and correct. And so, and because at the end of the day, you really need, for people to change their opinions and change their behaviors around alcohol, they need a supportive environment. And the supportive environment is Daybreak. You've given peer support, but I think there are other kind of environmental areas where we can have a look at as well, that we can start to kind of influence around things to make it easier for people to give up if they want to give up. It's blooming hard for people to give up. It really is, because everybody tells you it's not a normal thing to do. Your mates, will question you if you don't have a drink. You go to a work event and people are questioning why you're drinking water. You've got it everywhere around you, and so those kind of social norms, I think, they've got to change over time, and that's not something that will change overnight. That's a long-term aim, and that's another thing that kind of really attracts me, is that this is a long-term thing. It's a long-term aim. We're not going away. It's not going away. So we've got an opportunity to try and change that. So they're the things that kind of really, really make a difference in society. That's kind of what kind of gets me going, I think.
Right. And so lastly, we're going to do this handover process, and a lot of it will be virtual. Will be an interesting thing, and you probably won't get to meet many of the team face to face for some weeks or months.
Yeah.
And it'll be a very different experience. I think, I'd love to hear a bit about what does your life look like? What who are you? What do you enjoy? What are people? How do people really support you well? Tell us a bit about you as a person.
I think I'm a very driven, stubborn person. My wife will probably contest to that. I have a fair amount of energy, which needs kind of working through and burning off. So I do a fair bit of exercise. I'm either out on my bike or swimming or running or doing something like that. I love to cook. So I was very, very heartened by your kind of newsletters that are putting plates of food on there, your internal newsletter. I thought I can get into that, no problem. And yeah, no, I mean, those are the kind of things. I try to meditate, but I don't do it enough. So I recognize that, exercise for the mind is as important as exercise, but it's something that I've still not been able to crack yet. So I try and meditate when I can, but not often enough. I have a beautiful wife, and I have 2 daughters and 2 stepsons. So we have a week where we have no kids and a week where we have 4 kids. So it's either absolute bliss or it's absolute craziness. There's no balance.
It balances itself out in the long run.
It does. You need the weekends. You're kind of shell shocked at the weekends we don't have the kids. So it's very busy with the kids and stuff, and life is pretty busy at the moment. They're the kind of the things that make me tick, really.
Amazing. Andy, we wish you all the best in the new role, and we're all rooting for you and completely in your corner, and the team's very excited to meet you and work with you. So thanks again for picking us, really, and we look forward to the future with you.
Oh, no, thank you. And I just, I can't wait. And, you've built an absolute stunning organisation. So everybody I've spoken to, have heard of it, which is just pretty incredible, really. So, I just hope that I take the greatness and make it even greater, and that I respect everything that, you've built. And, I'm still keen to work with you, and I'm still keen to make sure that, as we do the handover, that I fully understand the kind of the things that make the organisation tick and keep all those things in place. So, well done on you for, really building something pretty significant. I just, I'm excited and slightly nervous as well at the same time, that I make sure that, I build on what was already built, and, I don't muck it up. But I know there's a lot of people around me that are going to give me that support. So, I'm confident we can build it even further. So, no, thank you. And I'm so excited.
Good stuff, mate.